Raya and the Last Dragon features a remarkable ensemble of voice actors who brought depth, charm, and authenticity to their characters, making the story feel alive and emotionally resonant. Kelly Marie Tran voices Raya, the determined and resourceful protagonist of the film. Tran, known for her breakout role as Rose Tico in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, had experience in both live-action and voice work, but Raya marked one of her first leading roles in a major animated feature. Tran's previous work in theater and voiceover allowed her to bring a nuanced blend of vulnerability and strength to Raya. Her performance captured the character's resilience and moments of doubt with subtle emotional shifts, giving the audience a hero who feels real and relatable. Tran's portrayal also emphasized cultural authenticity, as she drew on her own experiences and research to represent a character from a fictional Southeast Asian-inspired world with care and respect. This role significantly elevated Tran's profile in animation, showing her versatility beyond live-action performances and connecting her with a younger generation of fans who would see themselves in her character. Awkwafina voices Sisu, the Last Dragon, who is a magical, shape-shifting creature with a playful and heartfelt personality. Awkwafina brought her signature comedic timing, improv sensibility, and distinctive voice to the role, making Sisu both hilarious and emotionally poignant. Her previous work in comedy, music, and acting gave her the tools to balance absurd humor with moments of genuine wisdom, giving Sisu a warmth and quirkiness that resonates with viewers of all ages. The character's whimsical energy owes much to Awkwafina's improvisational approach during recording sessions, where she experimented with playful dialogue, vocal inflections, and improvised lines that later influenced the animation itself. Sisu's layered personality, funny, naive, brave, and sometimes melancholic, was made possible because of Awkwafina's ability to shift seamlessly between comedic beats and emotional intimacy. This role allowed her to expand her influence into animated storytelling and introduced her voice to millions of younger audiences worldwide. Gemma Chan voices Namari, the film's complex antagonist, who is a skilled warrior with conflicting loyalties. Chan, known for her work in film and television, including roles in high-profile fantasy and science fiction projects, brought a sophisticated gravitas to Namari. Her performance balanced fierceness with moments of doubt and vulnerability, giving the character depth beyond a traditional villain archetype. Chan's experience in theater and dramatic roles enabled her to navigate nuanced emotional beats, particularly in scenes where Namari's motivations and internal conflicts are revealed. By portraying a character who is both formidable and sympathetic, Chan helped elevate the narrative tension while humanizing the antagonist, creating opportunities for moral ambiguity and audience reflection on loyalty, trust, and reconciliation. Daniel Day Kim voices Tuk Tuk, Raya's loyal companion, a hybrid creature that blends the traits of a pill bug and an armadillo. Kim, widely recognized for his roles in television dramas and action series, utilized his warm and expressive voice to convey Tuk Tuk's affection, humor, and bravery without relying on extensive dialogue. His performance emphasized physicality through vocal sounds, grunts, and expressive noises, which the animators could then match with character movement. Kim's approach reinforced the bond between Tuk Tuk and Raya, emphasizing loyalty and companionship in a way that resonates with viewers emotionally. His involvement also highlighted the collaborative nature of animation, where voice actors and animators work in tandem to create believable and expressive characters. Other supporting voices include Lucy Liu as Syrah, a mystic warrior, and Brian Tyree Henry as Baun, a charismatic trader with a heart of gold. Liu brought elegance, intensity, and gravitas to her supporting role, giving Syrah an air of wisdom and authority that balances the youthful energy of other characters. Henry infused Baun with humor, charm, and emotional warmth, drawing on his experience in both stage and screen performances to make the character memorable and engaging. Each supporting voice contributed to a rich ensemble that felt organic and culturally textured, enhancing the film's immersive storytelling. The creative team behind Raya and the Last Dragon played a pivotal role in shaping the film's narrative, visual style, and emotional resonance. Don Hall and Carlton Cuse co-directed the film, with Hall bringing extensive experience in animated features, and Cuse contributing a background in serialized storytelling and character-driven narratives. Hall's prior work on major animated films helped define the pacing, emotional arcs, and cinematic framing of action sequences, while Q's storytelling expertise reinforced character motivations, world-building, and thematic coherence. Their collaboration ensured that the film balanced thrilling adventure with character development and meaningful emotional beats. Adelaine Wong and Quentin Taylor served as lead writers, crafting a screenplay that combined heroic fantasy, humor, and heartfelt moral lessons. Their writing emphasized strong female leads, cultural authenticity, and intergenerational themes of trust, reconciliation, and unity. The screenplay underwent multiple iterations to balance action-driven sequences with moments of reflection, humor, and lyrical dialogue that could resonate with both children and adults. Songwriters, including James Anderson and Gillian Fry, collaborated closely with writers and animators to integrate musical moments seamlessly into the narrative, ensuring that songs advanced character development rather than functioning as mere interludes. Animators, led by art directors and visual development teams, translated these performances and scripts into lush, expressive visuals. Their work involved a combination of traditional hand-drawn principles and cutting-edge computer-generated animation, allowing for fluid character movement, intricate fight choreography, and expressive facial animation. Each scene was meticulously storyboarded to ensure clarity of storytelling, emotional resonance, and visual spectacle. Lighting designers and technical directors contributed to the film's distinctive color palette and environmental realism, using lighting and shading to emphasize mood, tension, and magic throughout the world of Kumandra. The score, composed by James Howard, underscored the film's emotional beats, blending orchestral arrangements with cultural instrumentation that reflected the Southeast Asian-inspired setting. Howard's compositions amplified suspenseful moments, comedic sequences, and tender interactions, reinforcing narrative pacing and character emotion. The combination of score, sound design, and music integrated with voice performances ensured a cohesive sensory experience that supported the storytelling. Producers such as Osnat Schurer and Peter Del Vescovo guided the production through development, ensuring that the creative vision remained consistent while balancing studio expectations, budgetary considerations, and technological innovation. Raya and the Last Dragon has had a profound impact on pop culture, family entertainment, and children's media, shaping conversations about representation, identity, and modern values while resonating with audiences around the world. The film's release marked a significant moment in animated cinema, particularly because it featured a predominantly Asian-inspired fictional world with strong female leadership at its center. Raya, as a character, became a symbol of courage, resilience, and empowerment, particularly for young girls, demonstrating that animated heroes do not have to conform to previously established archetypes. Her journey across Kumandra, a land inspired by various Southeast Asian cultures, presented a rich tapestry of diversity, mythology, and storytelling depth that encouraged audiences to engage with cultures they may not have previously explored. The attention to cultural details, from clothing designs and architectural influences to folklore-inspired creatures, elevated the film beyond a simple adventure story, creating a world that felt authentic, immersive, and respectful of its inspirations. Globally, the film resonated strongly because of its universal themes of trust, unity, and reconciliation. Audiences in different regions found themselves relating to the struggles between different tribes and communities in Kumandra, drawing parallels to contemporary issues of division and cooperation in real-world societies. This relevance helped the film gain traction not only in family entertainment circles but also in broader social discussions about empathy, teamwork, and understanding across differences. Teachers and parents often highlighted the film as a tool for starting conversations with children about cooperation, leadership, and the importance of building trust, demonstrating how animated storytelling can serve as both entertainment and educational resource. The film's influence extended to viral trends, merchandise, and media adaptations. Characters like Raya and Sisu became instantly recognizable, inspiring fan art, cosplay, and social media challenges. Clips from the film, particularly Sisu's humorous moments and inspirational lines from Raya, circulated widely on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, generating fan engagement that extended well beyond the initial theatrical release. Merchandise sales reflected the popularity of the characters, with action figures, plush toys, clothing lines, and collectible items appealing to both children and adult fans. Sisu, as a lovable and quirky dragon, became a standout figure in these merchandise waves, her expressive design and playful personality translating well into physical products that fans could interact with daily. Music from the film also became a cultural touchstone. The soundtrack, blending original songs with orchestral scoring, contributed to the emotional resonance of the story. Songs associated with key moments of bravery, teamwork, or personal growth were shared widely in schools, music programs, and social media platforms, often serving as inspiration for fan performances or cover versions. These songs, paired with memorable dialogue, helped cement certain moments from the film into cultural memory, creating a sense of shared experience across diverse audience groups. In family entertainment, Raya and the Last Dragon raised the bar for storytelling sophistication. The film's willingness to explore complex moral dilemmas, such as the consequences of mistrust, the tension between vengeance and forgiveness, and the challenges of leadership, offered children a layered narrative that respects their ability to understand and process complex ideas. Simultaneously, adults appreciated the film's emotional depth, the clever humor woven into dialogue and visual gags, and the nuanced portrayal of relationships between characters. This dual-layer storytelling created a multi-generational appeal, encouraging family viewing experiences where parents and children could discuss themes, character choices, and narrative outcomes together. The film's representation of female leadership, embodied by Raya, contributed significantly to ongoing conversations in media about gender roles. Unlike many traditional animated films where male heroes dominate, Raya is both strategic and empathetic, courageous yet reflective. She is a hero whose identity is defined by actions and choices rather than romantic subplots, giving young viewers a model of empowerment that centers on skill, determination, and moral integrity. This aspect of the film influenced discussions in educational and entertainment circles about the importance of strong female leads in animation, inspiring other studios to consider diverse protagonists and culturally rich storytelling in future projects. Beyond gender representation, the film highlighted cultural representation on a global scale. Kumandra, while fictional, draws on a variety of Southeast Asian influences, including architecture, clothing, folklore, and culinary references. This amalgamation of cultural elements helped introduce audiences to traditions, aesthetics, and narrative motifs that are often underrepresented in mainstream Western animation. The careful attention to authentic representation sparked conversations about the importance of cultural consultants, research, and sensitivity in media creation, influencing industry standards and expectations for inclusivity. Theme parks and entertainment experiences also reflected the film's cultural impact. Although no permanent ride based on Raya existed immediately, Disney parks incorporated meet-and-greet experiences, promotional displays, and merchandise booths, giving audiences tangible connections to the world of Kumandra. Such adaptations reinforced the character's popularity, allowing fans to interact with the story beyond the screen and deepening their emotional connection. These theme park experiences also allowed for educational opportunities, as cultural design elements were highlighted in exhibits or interactive installations, subtly teaching visitors about artistic influences and storytelling inspiration. Raya and the Last Dragon's influence extended to other media as well. Television specials, short-form content, and digital shorts were created to expand the narrative universe, allowing audiences to explore character backstories, comedic side plots, and world-building details in bite-sized formats. This cross-platform presence kept the film culturally relevant for months after its release, sustaining engagement and maintaining momentum in fan communities. In the context of pop culture, Raya inspired trends in social media art, storytelling, and even fashion. Fans recreated Kumandra-inspired outfits for cosplay and creative photography, translating the fictional aesthetic into real-world style experimentation. Digital artists shared concept reinterpretations, alternate endings, and visual tributes, creating a collaborative, global dialogue around the film. This engagement reflects the generational resonance of the story, where young audiences actively participate in shaping and extending the cultural footprint of the film through creative expression. The film also contributed to the normalization of positive cross-cultural narratives in children's media. By presenting a world where multiple groups must overcome historical conflicts to achieve unity, Raya provides a metaphor for real-world collaboration and reconciliation. The production of Raya and the Last Dragon represents a remarkable achievement in modern animation, blending cutting-edge technology with traditional storytelling principles and cultural authenticity. The film's journey from concept to final product involved years of meticulous planning, artistic experimentation, and collaboration among large, international teams of animators, storyboard artists, designers, voice actors, and technical specialists. One of the earliest steps in the production process was research. The creative team traveled extensively throughout Southeast Asia to study architecture, landscapes, clothing, textiles, and traditional arts. These trips informed the development of Kumandra, a fictional land that draws inspiration from multiple cultures including Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. The attention to authentic visual details created a world that feels alive, immersive, and culturally textured, while still allowing room for imaginative reinterpretation, such as the magical elements represented by Sisu and the dragon magic that flows through the land. Voice recording sessions were among the earliest creative milestones. Kelly Marie Tran, Awkwafina, Gemma, Daniel Day Kim, and supporting actors participated in group recordings, which allowed the directors to capture the chemistry and interplay between characters in real time. These sessions were not only about capturing dialogue but also experimenting with improvisation and emotional timing. Awkwafina, in particular, contributed improvised lines for Sisu that were later incorporated into animation, requiring animators to adjust timing, expressions, and gestures to match her delivery. Voice actors often performed multiple takes with variations in tone, pitch, and pacing, giving animators and editors a rich palette of vocal expression to work with. These recordings formed the foundation for facial animation and body language, enabling characters to convey complex emotional nuance without relying solely on dialogue. Storyboarding was a critical stage in shaping the visual narrative. Artists sketched each scene with attention to framing, camera angles, pacing, and emotional beats. The storyboards were dynamic documents, often revised repeatedly as writers and directors refined sequences for clarity, humor, and emotional impact. Some storyboards explored deleted concepts or alternative character interactions. For example, early versions of the film included a subplot in which Raya temporarily mistrusted Tuk Tuk due to a misadventure, which was later simplified to maintain pacing and emotional clarity. These iterations reveal how the creative team prioritized narrative flow while balancing action, character development, and comedic relief. Animation techniques combined traditional principles with sophisticated computer-generated tools. The animators employed hand-drawn principles of squash and stretch, anticipation, and follow-through to create naturalistic movement, while computer algorithms handled complex physics simulations for water, fabric, fire, and magical effects. Sisu's dragon form required particularly advanced animation solutions. Her fluid, serpentine movements demanded a unique rigging system that allowed for flexible spine articulation, expressive facial deformation, and dynamic scaling to accommodate her shape-shifting abilities. Animators studied real-life animals, including reptiles, fish, and felines, to inform her locomotion, but they adapted these movements with exaggeration to match her fantastical nature. Lighting and rendering posed another technical challenge. Kumandra's landscapes vary from dense forests and floating rivers to urban marketplaces and mountain ranges, each requiring distinct lighting schemes to convey mood and depth. Technical directors developed custom rendering techniques to balance photorealism with painterly aesthetics, ensuring that textures, colors, and atmospheric effects enhanced emotional impact without overwhelming viewers. Volumetric lighting was used in key magical sequences, such as Sisu's energy manifestations, to create a sense of wonder and scale. The collaboration between lighting artists and animators was crucial, as subtle shifts in illumination could dramatically change a character's perceived emotional state. Music and sound design were tightly integrated into the animation process. Composers and sound designers often provided temporary musical cues during early animation stages to guide pacing and tone. Animators timed actions, facial expressions, and magical effects to align with musical beats, creating a harmonious interplay between visual and auditory storytelling. For example, sequences where Raya crosses treacherous terrain or engages in combat were choreographed to complement rhythmic motifs in the score, heightening tension and audience engagement. Collaboration between departments was an ongoing hallmark of the production. Character designers worked closely with animators to ensure expressions and proportions could be consistently replicated across thousands of frames. Costume designers influenced color choices for characters and tribes, reinforcing personality, social status, and cultural motifs. Environmental artists and texture specialists provided assets that allowed animators to interact naturally with surroundings, from climbing waterfalls to navigating crowded marketplaces. These cross-departmental collaborations resulted in scenes that feel cohesive, immersive, and emotionally resonant. One notable behind-the-scenes anecdote involves the creation of the dragon magic sequences. Initially, animators explored multiple visual styles for Sisu's magical abilities, including glowing orbs, trails of fire, and liquid-like manifestations. After experimentation, the team settled on a fluid, iridescent effect that visually communicates the benevolent and transformative nature of Sisu's powers. This choice required the development of new simulation tools that allowed for interactive deformation, light refraction, and color shifting in real time, making the animation more responsive to character interactions. The end result is a sequence that feels magical, tangible, and emotionally connected to character intent. Deleted concepts and story rewrites also reveal the meticulous attention to pacing and clarity. Early drafts included a larger focus on intertribal politics, but these elements were streamlined to maintain a central emotional through line: Raya's journey to build trust and reunite Kumandra. While some subplot elements were minimized, traces of these ideas remain in visual design, cultural references, and environmental storytelling, enriching the background and providing depth for attentive viewers. The integration of humor required special collaboration. Comedic timing in animation often relies on precise visual cues, facial expressions, and exaggerated gestures. Storyboard artists, animators, and voice actors work together to ensure that jokes landed across age groups. For example, Tuk Tuk's physical comedy sequences were carefully choreographed to maintain clarity, timing, and believability, while Sisu's improvisational humor allowed animators to experiment with expressive exaggeration, creating a character who is both unpredictable and endearing. Raya and the Last Dragon unfolds as a meticulously structured narrative, blending adventure, emotional depth, and humor in a way that appeals to both children and adults. The story begins in the world of Kumandra, a land divided into 5 distinct regions named Heart, Spine, Fong, Tail, and Talon, each reflecting unique cultural influences, landscapes, and social norms. The central premise revolves around the fractured unity of Kumandra after the emergence of an ancient evil force known as the Drune, which turns people into stone. The opening sequence establishes the stakes, showing the benevolent dragon Sisu sacrificing herself to stop the Drune and inadvertently scattering the dragon gem into 5 pieces, each guarded by one of the regions. This setup provides both a clear emotional motivation and an overarching narrative goal: reunite Kumandra and restore the dragon gem to defeat the Drune permanently. The film's pacing is carefully calibrated to balance exposition, action, and emotional beats. The first act focuses on introducing Raya as a capable yet emotionally guarded protagonist. We see her as a young girl witnessing the fall of Heart, the betrayal of trust that fractures the tribes, and the transformation of her father into stone. These early events create immediate tension and emotional investment, while also establishing the film's central theme: the importance of trust and unity in overcoming adversity. The narrative structure employs both linear and episodic storytelling. While the overarching plot moves forward toward the goal of reassembling the dragon gem, each region presents a mini-arc or episodic adventure that reinforces character development, tests moral choices, and explores cultural diversity within Kumandra. Raya's journey is marked by a series of carefully crafted turning points. Her first major challenge arises when she ventures into the Fong territory to retrieve the next piece of the dragon gem. Here, she encounters Namari, a complex antagonist whose actions blur the lines between villainy and moral ambiguity. This encounter serves multiple narrative purposes. It heightens tension, introduces a rival with mirrored traits, and forces Raya to confront issues of trust, strategy, and empathy. By structuring the story around these episodic challenges, the film maintains dynamic pacing, allowing audiences to experience suspense, humor, and emotional resonance in succession. The integration of comedic beats is deliberate and complementary to the narrative structure. Sisu, as a magical and unpredictable dragon, provides levity in tense moments. Her playful banter, clumsy mishaps, and whimsical worldview balance the darker themes of betrayal, loss, and the threat of the Drune. The humor is often visual, relying on exaggerated movements, physical gags, and timing that aligns with character expressions and dialogue. This approach ensures that children are entertained while adults appreciate the clever layering of humor and character insight. Comedy is also interwoven into action sequences. For instance, Tuk-Tuk's antics during chases or battle scenes provide relief without disrupting the narrative stakes, showcasing a thoughtful balance between tension and levity. Musical integration plays a subtle but impactful role in the narrative structure. Although the film is not a traditional musical, songs and score underscore emotional peaks and character arcs. Moments where Sisu sings or hums, or when instrumental motifs accompany Raya's solo reflections, serve to reinforce themes of hope, bravery, and personal growth. The music functions as an emotional guide, signaling shifts in mood, foreshadowing developments, or accentuating dramatic tension. This careful alignment of music with narrative enhances the story's pacing and ensures that emotional climaxes are amplified without overwhelming the plot. The second act focuses on the deepening complexity of relationships and moral dilemmas. As Raya collects additional pieces of the dragon gem, she is repeatedly confronted with choices that test her principles. Whether to trust strangers, how to navigate deception, and when to exercise restraint versus aggression. These sequences highlight her growth from a guarded, self-reliant warrior to a character capable of empathy, collaboration, and leadership. Namaari functions as a foil, embodying the consequences of prioritizing loyalty to tribe or personal ambition over broader ethical considerations. Their repeated encounters escalate tension, culminating in emotionally charged confrontations where trust and forgiveness become central motifs. Action sequences are carefully choreographed to align with narrative beats. Battles, chases, and magical confrontations are not merely spectacle. Each scene advances character arcs, highlights the stakes, and reinforces thematic elements. For example, the climactic confrontation with the Drune involves strategic teamwork, highlighting the film's moral message that unity and cooperation are more powerful than individual heroics. These sequences maintain tension and excitement, while also emphasizing intelligence, resourcefulness, and emotional decision-making over mere physical prowess. The film's emotional climax occurs when Raya, facing the consequences of fractured trust, must reconcile with Namaari and restore faith in others to fully reunite Kumandra. This moment is carefully foreshadowed through repeated narrative motifs. Scattered dragon gem pieces, acts of forgiveness, and lessons learned through episodic challenges. The emotional resonance is heightened by animation, facial expressions, and subtle musical cues, allowing audiences to feel the weight of the protagonist's growth and the stakes of the story. The pacing here is deliberate, giving space for reflection while maintaining narrative momentum toward resolution. Comic relief continues to play a role in the third act, ensuring that moments of tension do not become overwhelming. Tuk-Tuk's physical comedy, Sisu's playful exaggerations, and small miscommunications between characters provide breathing room while reinforcing relational dynamics. These moments, carefully timed within the narrative, contribute to pacing that feels natural and engaging for a broad audience. Humor, action, and emotional beats are seamlessly interwoven, demonstrating the filmmaker's mastery of narrative rhythm. The resolution of the film reflects careful attention to thematic and structural closure. The final act resolves major conflicts, reunites the tribes, and restores balance to Kumandra. Raya's personal journey concludes with an understanding that leadership involves empathy, trust, and collaboration. Namaari's arc is also thoughtfully concluded, showing growth and moral reflection rather than one-dimensional villainy. The Drone's defeat is achieved through collective action, reinforcing the central theme that unity overcomes adversity. By interweaving plot resolution with character development, the story achieves a satisfying emotional and narrative payoff. Visual storytelling supports the narrative structure at every stage. The journey across Kumandra's varied landscapes provides natural segmentation for episodic challenges, while the design of each region conveys social, cultural, and emotional context. For instance, the tale's swampy, unpredictable terrain reinforces themes of uncertainty and adaptability, while the heart's vibrant, harmonious environment symbolizes initial unity and the stakes of its loss. Raya and the Last Dragon presents a rich tapestry of themes and moral lessons that resonate with audiences of all ages, offering both entertainment and thoughtful reflection. At the core of the film is the exploration of trust and unity. The fractured land of Kumandra serves as a metaphor for divided communities, where suspicion and past grievances prevent cooperation. Raya's journey illustrates that rebuilding trust requires patience, empathy, and courage. Throughout her quest, she repeatedly encounters situations where she must decide whether to act impulsively or consider the perspectives of others. These moral choices drive the story forward while teaching audiences, particularly children, about the importance of trust, forgiveness, and collaboration in overcoming challenges. The narrative demonstrates that no individual can achieve great things alone, and that collective effort, empathy, and mutual respect are essential for lasting solutions. Identity and self-acceptance are central themes woven into the character arcs. Raya struggles with the burden of her role as a leader and the responsibility of restoring unity to Kumandra. Her initial reliance on self-sufficiency and wariness of others highlights a tension between personal strength and relational interdependence. Sisu, the Last Dragon, embodies self-acceptance and authenticity. Her playful, unconventional, and sometimes clumsy behavior teaches Raya and the audience that embracing one's unique traits is a source of power rather than a weakness. The interplay between Raya and Sisu underscores the importance of balancing competence with openness, showing that leadership and heroism are not defined solely by skill or strength, but also by empathy, humor, and authenticity. Friendship and loyalty emerge as recurring motifs throughout the story. Tuk Tuk, Baun, and other supporting characters demonstrate steadfast loyalty and provide emotional support to Raya in both critical and lighthearted moments. These relationships illustrate the value of companionship, trustworthiness, and shared responsibility. The characters' bonds evolve organically, showing that meaningful connections are built through shared experiences, acts of bravery, and mutual respect. The film emphasizes that relationships, whether platonic, familial, or communal, are strengthened by understanding and forgiveness, providing a nuanced depiction of loyalty that extends beyond simplistic portrayals of friendship. Family bonds and generational wisdom are also highlighted as moral lessons. Raya's relationship with her father establishes early narrative stakes and provides motivation for her quest. The memory of her father's guidance shapes her moral compass and informs her decisions in critical moments, demonstrating the lasting influence of parental mentorship. Similarly, other characters reference elders and traditions, reinforcing the idea that respect for history, heritage, and accumulated wisdom is essential for personal growth and communal harmony. The film portrays family not only as a source of emotional grounding, but also as a framework for learning values, responsibility, and resilience. Courage and personal growth are central to Raya's hero's journey. Her challenges are not solely physical. Many involve confronting internal fears, prejudice, and doubt. The narrative emphasizes that true bravery involves confronting uncertainty, taking responsibility for one's choices, and acknowledging mistakes. The film's structure allows audiences to witness incremental growth, as Raya evolves from a determined but cautious warrior into a compassionate leader who prioritizes collective well-being. This progression conveys that personal growth is an ongoing process, reinforced by reflection, self-awareness, and meaningful action. Destiny and purpose intersect with themes of responsibility. The dragon gem symbolizes not only magical power but also moral obligation, highlighting the weight of leadership and the consequences of actions. Raya's pursuit of the gem is not motivated by personal gain, but by the desire to restore balance and protect her community. The narrative teaches that destiny is shaped by conscious decisions, integrity, and the willingness to act for the greater good, reinforcing the idea that moral responsibility is central to heroism. Love and compassion are subtly interwoven into the story. While the film does not focus on romantic relationships, it emphasizes a broader interpretation of love, empathy for others, concern for the vulnerable, and recognition of shared humanity. Acts of compassion, such as forgiving an adversary or assisting someone in danger, are shown to have profound narrative and emotional consequences. This broader portrayal of love underscores the film's emphasis on relational ethics and moral action, encouraging viewers to value kindness and understanding as forms of strength. Sacrifice is a recurring lesson in both plot and character development. Sisu's initial willingness to face the Drune despite the cost, the characters' personal risks during their journeys, and Raya's eventual choices highlight the importance of putting communal well-being above individual safety or pride. These sacrifices are portrayed not as burdens, but as noble actions that produce meaningful change, reinforcing the narrative message that moral courage often requires selflessness. Freedom, in both literal and metaphorical senses, is explored through Kumandra's history and the liberation from past grievances. The Drune's destructive force symbolizes stagnation, fear, and the consequences of mistrust. By restoring unity, the characters reclaim freedom not only for themselves but also for their society. This thematic focus encourages audiences to reflect on how reconciliation, understanding, and collective action can lead to societal and personal liberation. The balance between fantasy adventure and emotional lessons is carefully managed throughout the film. High-stakes action, magical elements, and comedic moments are seamlessly integrated with ethical and emotional dilemmas. For example, chase sequences, battles, and magical displays are not merely spectacle. They reflect the stakes of trust, the consequences of actions, and the growth of characters. This integration ensures that audiences are engaged while absorbing moral lessons in a manner that feels natural and organic rather than didactic. The film's portrayal of moral ambiguity is particularly notable. Characters like Namari are not depicted as purely evil. Her motivations, shaped by loyalty and fear of failure, provide depth and realism. This nuanced depiction teaches viewers that ethical decisions are often complex and that understanding multiple perspectives is essential for empathy and conflict resolution. Such moral subtlety distinguishes the narrative from simpler good versus evil storytelling and encourages critical thinking in younger audiences about the consequences of actions, the complexity of human motives, and the value of reconciliation. Resilience is another prominent theme. Kumandra's communities, despite their fractured state, show the capacity to recover and rebuild through collaboration, reflection, and courage. Raya and the Last Dragon is distinguished by its vibrant animation style and meticulous visual storytelling, which work in tandem to immerse audiences in the richly imagined world of Kumandra. The film combines traditional animation principles with cutting-edge computer-generated imagery, creating a seamless blend of realistic motion, expressive characters, and fantastical environments. Character design was a central aspect of visual storytelling. Raya herself was designed to reflect agility, determination, and approachability. Her proportions and movements emphasize athleticism and precision, while subtle facial expressions communicate emotional nuance. Sisu, in contrast, embodies fluidity, whimsy, and unpredictability. Her serpentine body, expressive eyes, and shape-shifting abilities required innovative animation techniques, including custom rigging systems that allowed for intricate spine articulation, flexible scaling, and dynamic transformations. These technical innovations gave Sisu a visual personality that reinforced her narrative role as a magical, playful, and emotionally resonant companion. The environmental design of Kumandra is a standout feature of the film's animation style. Each of the 5 regions is visually distinct, reflecting both cultural inspiration and narrative function. Heart, for example, is depicted with warm tones, lush vegetation, and balanced architectural forms, symbolizing harmony and unity. Spine features jagged mountains and steep cliffs, reinforcing tension and challenge. Wong is characterized by sharp angles, towering structures, and muted colors, conveying conflict and caution. Tale's swampy landscapes and unpredictable waterways create a sense of instability and danger, while Talon incorporates industrious, bustling cityscapes that emphasize resourcefulness and survival. These design choices reinforce storytelling, providing visual cues that guide audience interpretation of each scene's emotional and narrative significance. Color palette and lighting play an essential role in visual storytelling. Kumandra's landscapes employ saturated, culturally inspired color schemes that evoke mood and emphasize character development. Warm golds and oranges are used in moments of trust and unity, while cooler blues and greens underscore tension, reflection, or isolation. Lighting enhances these effects through careful shading, shadow work, and atmospheric perspective, giving depth to the environments and emphasizing spatial relationships. Volumetric lighting is particularly effective in magical sequences, such as Sisu's energy manifestations or scenes involving the dragon gem, highlighting the otherworldly aspects of Kumandra while reinforcing narrative significance. Movement and physicality are central to the film's visual storytelling. Animators studied martial arts, animal motion, and acrobatics to ensure that action sequences were dynamic yet believable. Combat scenes, chase sequences, and traversal across complex environments are choreographed to reflect character personalities and emotional stakes. For example, Raya's precision and agility in battle convey competence and focus, while Tuk-Tuk's bumbling yet loyal movements provide comic relief and charm. Sisu's fluid, sometimes unpredictable motions serve both narrative and emotional purposes, visually communicating her playful personality, wisdom, and vulnerability. Each character's motion is carefully calibrated to reflect both narrative intent and emotional subtext. Facial expressions are a key component of character-driven storytelling. Subtle movements of the eyes, eyebrows, and mouth convey complex emotions, allowing characters to communicate internal states without explicit dialogue. These expressions were meticulously crafted through a combination of hand-drawn principles and advanced computer animation techniques, ensuring consistency across thousands of frames. Emotional beats, such as hesitation, hope, or joy, are amplified through these nuanced facial animations, allowing audiences to form deeper connections with the characters. Animation techniques also extended to environmental interactions. Fabric, water, and other dynamic elements were simulated using advanced physics-based algorithms. Clothing, such as Raya's warrior outfit, moves realistically during combat or travel sequences, enhancing immersion and believability. Water sequences, like crossing rivers or interacting with magical energy, incorporate fluid simulations that respond to character movement, creating a sense of tangible, physical space. These techniques, combined with atmospheric effects such as mist, dust, and particle systems, contribute to a living, breathing world. The film's visual symbolism reinforces thematic content. The dragon gem, for example, is rendered with refractive, glowing qualities, visually signaling its central narrative and moral importance. Sisu's magical energy often changes color and form based on emotional context, providing audiences with intuitive cues about character states and story developments. Recurring visual motifs, such as bridges connecting separated landmasses, emphasize themes of unity, trust, and connection, seamlessly integrating symbolic meaning into environmental design. Composition and cinematography are carefully considered in every frame. Camera angles, depth of field, and framing guide audience attention and highlight narrative priorities. Overhead shots showcase the scale of Kumandra's landscapes, emphasizing the journey's scope and character perseverance. Close-ups capture subtle emotional expressions, reinforcing intimate moments between characters. Dynamic camera movement during action sequences enhances tension and excitement while maintaining clarity of spatial relationships. These visual decisions ensure that storytelling is coherent, engaging, and emotionally resonant at every stage. Technical breakthroughs contributed to the film's distinct style. Hybrid animation techniques allowed for real-time previews of complex lighting, shading, and particle effects, enabling directors and animators to iterate quickly while preserving quality. Cloud-based asset sharing facilitated collaboration among international teams, ensuring consistent character design, color grading, and environmental fidelity. Procedural animation systems were used to handle secondary motions, such as hair, tails, or Sisu's magical energy, allowing primary character actions to remain expressive and responsive. These innovations enhanced both efficiency and creative flexibility, resulting in fluid, polished, and expressive visuals. The art direction reflects a careful balance between realism and stylization. While Kumandra draws inspiration from real-world architecture, landscapes, and textiles, the designers selectively exaggerated forms, colors, and proportions to create a fantastical, storybook-like aesthetic. This approach allows audiences to connect emotionally with the world without being constrained by strict realism. Magical elements, such as Sisu's transformations or drone manifestations, are stylized to emphasize wonder and narrative significance, integrating seamlessly with otherwise grounded environmental design. Visual storytelling extends to subtle background details that reinforce culture, character, and history. Music and sound design play a pivotal role in Raya and the Last Dragon, enhancing storytelling, character development, and emotional resonance throughout the film. The score, composed by James Howard, combines orchestral arrangements with elements inspired by Southeast Asian musical traditions, creating a soundscape that is both epic in scale and culturally grounded. Traditional instruments such as the gamelan, bamboo flutes, and various percussive elements were integrated into the score, providing texture and authenticity to the fictional world of Kumandra. This blending of orchestral and culturally influenced instrumentation allows the music to underscore both the emotional and narrative arcs, creating a sense of immersion for the audience while reinforcing the cultural inspiration behind the setting. The film's original songs are sparse but strategically placed, functioning not only as entertainment but also as extensions of character development. Sisu, for example, sings at moments that highlight her playful, whimsical nature and philosophical insights. These musical interludes serve to reinforce her identity as a magical and emotionally attuned character, while providing contrast to high-tension action sequences. The songs are carefully composed so that lyrics, melody, and rhythm reinforce narrative themes. When Sisu reflects on hope, trust, or the power of unity, her musical expressions emphasize these lessons, allowing audiences to absorb thematic content in a memorable and engaging way. Musical motifs are used throughout the film to signal character presence, emotional shifts, and narrative tension. For instance, subtle variations of the same melodic line may accompany Raya during moments of determination, reflection, or vulnerability, providing a subconscious cue to the audience about her internal state. Similarly, antagonistic or morally ambiguous situations may be underscored with dissonant harmonies or altered rhythmic patterns, signaling tension without requiring explicit dialogue. This careful thematic musical design ensures cohesion between score, character, and narrative progression. Sound design extends beyond music to encompass a rich tapestry of environmental and character-driven audio effects. Kumandra is depicted as a living, breathing world through layered ambient sounds such as rustling leaves, flowing rivers, marketplace chatter, and wildlife. These elements enhance immersion and provide spatial context, allowing viewers to perceive the geography, culture, and mood of each region. Tale's swampy environment, for example, features echoing water sounds and distant animal calls that evoke a sense of unpredictability and challenge, while Heart's serene landscapes are supported by gentle environmental tones that convey harmony and safety. Character-specific sound design is a hallmark of the film's auditory storytelling. Tuk-Tuk's movements are accompanied by whimsical squeaks, thuds, and rolls, reinforcing his hybrid creature design and enhancing his comedic appeal. These sounds were carefully crafted to sync with animation, providing auditory cues that amplify humor and emotional expression. Sisu's magical transformations and abilities required innovative audio solutions, blending vocalizations, synthesized tones, and natural sounds to create effects that are simultaneously fantastical, recognizable, and emotionally resonant. Each magical sound reinforces narrative function, signaling both action and emotional significance. Combat sequences and action-oriented moments demonstrate the interplay between music, sound effects, and pacing. Sword clashes, impacts, and environmental hazards are accompanied by tailored sound cues that match the visual timing, heightening tension and realism. The score dynamically interacts with these effects, shifting tempo, volume, and orchestration to match narrative stakes. Chase sequences, climbing sequences, and battles with environmental hazards are choreographed to align sound, music, and animation, creating a cohesive multisensory experience that enhances excitement and immersion. The film also explores auditory cues for thematic reinforcement. The dragon gem, as a central magical object, has a distinct sonic identity. When in motion, being assembled, or activating its magic, the gem emits harmonic, crystalline tones that signal importance and evoke wonder. These auditory cues help guide audience focus, highlight narrative stakes, and reinforce the gem's symbolic function as a representation of trust, unity, and hope. Similarly, the drone is accompanied by low, ominous tones that contrast with the more vibrant and harmonic sounds associated with the heroes, providing subconscious tension and signaling danger. Collaboration between composers, sound designers, and animators was critical in achieving seamless integration. Musical cues were often provided during animation review sessions, allowing timing, expressions, and gestures to align precisely with both score and sound effects. This iterative process ensured that action sequences, comedic moments, and emotional beats were fully synchronized with auditory elements, enhancing impact and audience engagement. Improvisation by voice actors, particularly Awkwafina Sisu, influenced musical timing and sound design, demonstrating the dynamic interplay between performance and audio production. Music also plays a role in reinforcing cultural authenticity. Percussive patterns, melodic scales, and timbres reflect Southeast Asian influences, subtly educating audiences about musical traditions while enriching the storytelling. During scenes in marketplaces or communal spaces, background music incorporates rhythmic and harmonic elements inspired by local instruments and folk motifs. These cues are not didactic but serve to immerse viewers in the cultural tapestry of kumandra, providing an auditory complement to visual and narrative design. Emotional arcs are enhanced through the score's subtle layering. Quiet, reflective moments often feature sparse instrumentation, emphasizing vulnerability, contemplation, or internal struggle. Conversely, climactic sequences utilize full orchestral arrangements, including strings, brass, and percussion, to heighten intensity, heroism, and narrative resolution. This careful orchestration ensures that the audience's emotional journey aligns with the protagonist's experiences, reinforcing connection and empathy. Humor is also amplified through sound design. Comedic timing, exaggerated impacts, and playful vocalizations are complemented by musical stingers, dynamic volume shifts, and rhythmic patterns. For instance, Tuk Tuk's rolling antics or Sisu's exaggerated expressions are paired with corresponding audio cues, enhancing comedic effect while maintaining narrative coherence. The integration of auditory humor demonstrates the importance of sound in shaping audience perception and engagement. Songs and score also support character development. Motifs associated with trust, hope, and perseverance recur during key character decisions, reinforcing lessons learned and personal growth. For example, when Raya hesitates to trust Namari or struggles with self-doubt, subtle thematic motifs accompany her actions, signaling internal reflection. These auditory signals reinforce narrative subtext, providing audiences with intuitive understanding of character motivation and emotional trajectory. Raya and the Last Dragon was met with significant attention upon its release, arriving at a moment when the film industry and global audiences were navigating changing viewing habits and distribution models. The film premiered simultaneously in theaters and on Disney's streaming platform, a release strategy that immediately sparked discussion about the evolving future of cinema. Despite these unusual circumstances, the film generated strong interest from families, critics, and animation enthusiasts, who were eager to see how Disney would continue expanding its storytelling approach in a post-fairy tale era. Critically, Raya and the Last Dragon received widespread praise for its animation quality, character development, and thematic depth. Reviewers consistently highlighted the visual richness of Kumandra, noting the intricate environmental details, dynamic lighting, and fluid action sequences. The animation was often described as among the most sophisticated in contemporary family cinema, blending realism and stylization in a way that enhanced immersion without sacrificing emotional clarity. Critics also commended the film's fight choreography, particularly Raya's martial arts-inspired combat scenes, which were recognized for their energy and cinematic framing. Kelly Marie Tran's performance as Raya was widely celebrated for its emotional authenticity. Many reviewers noted her ability to convey strength, vulnerability, and guarded determination through vocal nuance alone. Her portrayal was described as grounded and relatable, allowing audiences to connect with Raya's internal struggles as much as her external quest. Awkwafina's performance as Sisu was another focal point of critical discussion. Some critics praised her comedic timing and distinctive voice, emphasizing how her humor provided balance to the film's darker emotional themes. Others debated whether her contemporary comedic style occasionally contrasted too sharply with the mythic tone of Kumandra. This divergence of opinion illustrates one of the film's central critical discussions: the balance between epic fantasy and modern humor. Gemma Chan's portrayal of Namari was often cited as one of the film's strengths. Critics appreciated the character's moral complexity, noting that the film avoided reducing her to a simplistic villain. Her motivations, shaped by loyalty, fear, and ambition, contributed to a narrative tension that felt emotionally layered rather than purely antagonistic. This nuanced depiction of conflict was praised for encouraging audiences, especially younger viewers, to think critically about moral ambiguity and the possibility of reconciliation. In terms of thematic reception, many critics applauded the film's emphasis on trust and unity. At a time when global discourse frequently centered on division and polarization, the film's core message resonated strongly. Reviewers observed that the narrative felt timely without being overtly political, offering lessons about empathy, collaboration, and forgiveness in a way that felt accessible to children and meaningful to adults. Parents and educators frequently commented on the film's value as a conversation starter, noting how it could be used to discuss topics such as trust, leadership, and community with young viewers. However, some criticism emerged regarding the film's world-building and pacing. While many viewers appreciated the episodic journey through Kumandra's 5 regions, others felt that certain tribes and supporting characters were introduced too briefly to allow for deeper exploration. This critique centered on the idea that the film's ambitious scope occasionally limited the time available for fully developing secondary arcs. Despite this, most critics acknowledged that the narrative maintained momentum and emotional focus through Raya's personal growth and her evolving relationship with Namari and Sisu. Audience reception mirrored critical response in many respects. Families praised the film's adventurous tone, humor, and emotional sincerity. Children were particularly drawn to Sisu's playful personality and Tuk-Tuk's physical comedy, while adults often expressed appreciation for the layered storytelling and cultural inspiration behind Kumandra's design. Social media platforms became spaces for enthusiastic discussion, fan art, and thematic analysis, reflecting strong engagement from viewers across age groups. Many families reported rewatching the film multiple times, suggesting that its emotional beats and visual spectacle retained appeal beyond initial viewing. Box office performance was shaped by the hybrid release model. While theatrical earnings were influenced by limited theater attendance in various regions, streaming numbers demonstrated substantial engagement. Disney reported strong premium access purchases during the film's initial streaming window, indicating that audiences were willing to adapt to new distribution methods in order to experience major animated releases. This model itself became a point of debate within the industry, with some analysts praising the flexibility and others questioning its long-term implications for theatrical exhibition. Raya and the Last Dragon thus occupies a notable place in discussions about how animated films are distributed and consumed in a rapidly evolving media landscape. Awards recognition further solidified the film's reputation. It received nominations for several major animation awards, including recognition from the Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature. Critics associations and industry guilds acknowledged its technical achievements in animation, sound design, and score composition. While it did not win every award for which it was nominated, The breadth of its recognition underscored its impact within the animation community. Representation was another key area of discussion in both praise and critique. Many viewers and commentators celebrated the film's Southeast Asian-inspired world and predominantly Asian voice cast. This was viewed as a meaningful step forward in broadening representation within mainstream animation. Raya and the Last Dragon quickly established itself as more than a standalone animated feature. Even though it did not launch with the immediate sequel announcements that sometimes accompany major animated releases, its world-building, thematic depth, and character popularity positioned it as fertile ground for long-term expansion. Within the broader Disney canon, the film became part of a growing era of culturally inspired, female-led adventure narratives, influencing how future projects would approach representation, mythology, and franchise potential. One of the most significant aspects of the film's legacy is how it strengthened Disney's commitment to diverse storytelling. Following earlier successes that explored non-European cultural settings, Raya demonstrated that audiences were eager for richly imagined worlds rooted in Southeast Asian inspiration. This encouraged further investment in culturally nuanced animated projects, reinforcing the idea that global folklore and mythologies could form the foundation for commercially viable franchises. Within Disney's animated lineage, Raya became emblematic of a creative shift toward broader representation and morally complex storytelling. In terms of direct franchise expansion, discussions of sequels and spin-offs circulated almost immediately after release. The narrative structure of Kumandra, divided into 5 distinct regions, naturally lends itself to further exploration. Each tribe has its own cultural identity, aesthetic, and social dynamic, offering narrative possibilities for prequels, side stories, or serialized television adaptations. While no theatrical sequel has yet fully materialized, the open-ended conclusion, which reunites the tribes but leaves room for continued growth and cooperation, suggests a world that can evolve beyond the initial storyline. Television and streaming platforms present another avenue for expansion. Animated spin-off series have become a common strategy for extending cinematic universes, and Kumandra's richly developed environment would support episodic storytelling. A series could explore the daily lives of characters after reunification, delve into the history of the dragons, or examine the political and cultural rebuilding of the tribes. Such expansion would allow for deeper character arcs, exploration of secondary figures like Baun or Namari, and continued emphasis on themes of trust and collaboration. Theme park integration is a critical marker of Disney franchise legacy. While Raya and the Last Dragon did not immediately receive a dedicated attraction, characters from the film were incorporated into Disney parks through meet-and-greet experiences, parade appearances, and merchandise locations. Raya's presence alongside iconic Disney heroines signaled her acceptance into the studio's broader princess and hero lineup. Over time, themed experiences or immersive attractions inspired by Kumandra could further solidify the film's long-term presence in Disney parks. The visually striking environments of Heart, Wong, and Tail offer potential for immersive design, interactive storytelling, and educational exhibits highlighting Southeast Asian inspiration. Merchandise remains one of the clearest indicators of franchise viability. Sisu plush toys, Raya action figures, costume replicas, and collectible dragon gem replicas became popular among children and collectors. The design of Sisu in particular, with her expressive face and vibrant coloration, translates well into toy form, reinforcing brand recognition. Apparel inspired by Kumandra's tribal motifs and accessories, reflecting the Dragon Gem's design, expanded the film's commercial footprint. Limited edition art prints, figurines, and themed home decor targeted older fans who appreciated the artistic craftsmanship of the world building. Publishing also contributes to legacy expansion. Children's books, graphic novels, and novelizations extended the story into print, allowing younger audiences to revisit the narrative and explore character backstories in greater detail. Illustrated storybooks emphasized visual artistry, while chapter books offered expanded perspectives on events within Kumandra. These publications help maintain engagement between major film releases, reinforcing familiarity with characters and themes. Stage adaptation is another potential avenue for long-term legacy. Disney has successfully transformed animated films into Broadway musicals and touring productions, and the epic journey structure of Raya and the Last Dragon would lend itself to theatrical interpretation. Elaborate set designs could recreate Kumandra's landscapes, while live choreography could highlight martial arts-inspired fight sequences. Music, enhanced for stage performance, could expand upon existing themes and introduce new songs that deepen character exploration. Such adaptations would introduce the story to new audiences while reinforcing its cultural and emotional resonance. Within animation history, Raya occupies a notable position in Disney's evolution from traditional fairy tales toward action-driven ensemble adventures. Earlier princess narratives often centered on romance, while more recent entries emphasize independence, self-discovery, and community. Raya continues this trajectory, presenting a heroine whose journey is defined by leadership, moral growth, and reconciliation rather than romantic fulfillment. This shift reflects broader societal changes and contributes to the film's enduring relevance within the studio's legacy. The film also influenced internal studio practices regarding cultural consultation and collaborative research. Its development involved extensive engagement with Southeast Asian consultants to ensure respectful representation. This approach set a precedent for future projects, reinforcing the importance of authenticity in storytelling. The success of this method strengthens Disney's institutional commitment to inclusive creative processes, shaping the company's artistic direction beyond a single film. Fan communities play an essential role in sustaining legacy. Online forums, fan fiction platforms, and social media groups dedicated to Raya and Kumandra remain active, producing reinterpretations, alternate endings, and speculative expansions of the universe. Cosplay at conventions demonstrates the continued popularity of Raya and Sisu as recognizable characters. These grassroots creative expressions contribute to the film's longevity, ensuring that it remains part of cultural conversation even without immediate sequels. Comparisons to other Disney franchises highlight Raya's distinct identity. Unlike long-running series with multiple sequels, its legacy is currently defined more by thematic influence and cultural resonance than by direct narrative continuation. Yet this does not diminish its franchise potential. Many Disney classics initially stood alone before later receiving sequels, spin-offs, or live-action reinterpretations. Given the studio's interest in revisiting successful intellectual properties, the possibility of expanded content remains open. Live-action adaptation is another conceivable path. Disney's trend of reimagining animated features in live-action form suggests that Raya's epic landscapes and action sequences could eventually be translated into a different cinematic medium. Raya and the Last Dragon resonates differently across age groups, and that layered emotional accessibility is one of the defining reasons the film continues to hold meaning beyond its initial release. Children, teenagers, young adults, and parents each encounter a different emotional doorway into Kumandra. The story operates as a vibrant adventure on the surface, but beneath that excitement lies a deeply human meditation on trust, disappointment, and reconciliation. This duality allows multiple generations to connect simultaneously, each drawing from their own lived experience. For children, Raya represents courage in the face of uncertainty. Her journey is clear and tangible. Find the Last Dragon, restore the gem, save the world. The quest structure is straightforward enough to follow, filled with action sequences, comedic interludes, and visually engaging environments. Young viewers respond strongly to the physicality of Raya's character. She fights, she travels alone, she navigates danger. Children often gravitate toward heroes who demonstrate capability, and Raya embodies a form of independence that feels aspirational yet accessible. She is not perfect, and that imperfection allows young audiences to see themselves in her mistakes. Sisu, voiced by Awkwafina, becomes an especially powerful emotional anchor for younger viewers. Her humor is playful and self-aware, softening the darker aspects of the story. Children respond to her optimism and slightly awkward charm. She speaks openly about her insecurities, about not feeling as powerful as her siblings once were. This vulnerability makes her relatable to children who may feel overshadowed or uncertain about their own strengths. Sisu's bright color palette and fluid animation also make her visually comforting, creating a character who feels magical without being intimidating. For teenagers, the emotional resonance deepens. Adolescence is often marked by fractured friendships and evolving trust. Raya's relationship with Namari mirrors this transitional instability. What begins as curiosity turns into betrayal, and the consequences ripple throughout the narrative. Teen audiences frequently interpret this dynamic through the lens of their own experiences with broken trust. The film does not offer simplistic forgiveness. It portrays anger, stubbornness, and guardedness. This complexity speaks to viewers navigating their own conflicts. The ultimate message of choosing trust again, even after being hurt, becomes especially poignant during a life stage where identity and loyalty feel fragile. Young adults and older viewers often connect most strongly with the film's thematic undercurrents. Trust in Kumandra is not merely personal. It is societal. The divided tribes reflect generational polarization and communal distrust. Adult audiences, living in a world frequently marked by political division and cultural tension, recognize these parallels. The film's exploration of unity through vulnerability resonates as a hopeful allegory. When Raya must decide to hand over the gem pieces and relinquish control, the moment becomes symbolic of relinquishing fear. Adults interpret this as an act of faith that transcends fantasy. Parents watching alongside their children experience yet another emotional layer. Many respond strongly to the loss of Raya's father and the weight of inherited responsibility. Chief Benja's belief in unity, and his subsequent sacrifice, create a parental perspective that emphasizes legacy. Parents may see themselves in Benja's hope for a better future, and in his trust that the next generation can do what the previous one could not. This generational handoff strengthens the film's emotional depth for adult viewers. Fan communities have played a central role in sustaining emotional engagement. Online platforms became spaces where viewers dissected character motivations and shared interpretations of ambiguous moments. Fan art exploring alternate endings or extended interactions between Raya and Namari gained traction. Cosplay communities embraced Raya's costume design, with conventions featuring detailed recreations of her hat, sword, and layered attire. These acts of creative participation transform passive viewing into active emotional investment. Cover versions of the film's promotional song, performed by Jhené Aiko, circulated widely on video platforms. Young singers recorded personal renditions, often pairing them with visual montages from the film. Through these reinterpretations, audiences internalized the emotional themes and reshaped them into personal expression. This participatory culture reinforces generational connection, as children and teens use creative outlets to articulate how the story made them feel. Another powerful point of connection lies in the portrayal of female strength without romantic framing. Raya's story centers on friendship, leadership, and reconciliation rather than romantic love. Many young viewers, particularly girls, found inspiration in a narrative where emotional fulfillment comes from community healing rather than romantic resolution. Older viewers recognize this as part of a broader shift in animated storytelling. This generational progression, from romance-driven fairy tales to self-defined heroism, marks a cultural evolution that audiences can track across decades. Social media discussions often highlighted the relationship between Raya and Namari, with some viewers interpreting their dynamic through a lens of emotional tension that transcends simple rivalry. While the film does not explicitly frame their bond romantically, the emotional charge between them sparked widespread conversation. This interpretive openness allowed different age groups to project their own readings onto the story, fostering inclusive engagement and debate. During global lockdown periods, when the film was released simultaneously in theaters and through streaming, many families experienced it together at home. This shared viewing context amplified generational resonance. Parents and children processed the narrative side by side, discussing its themes in real time. In an era defined by isolation, a story centered on rebuilding trust carried heightened emotional relevance. The communal act of watching a film about unity during a period of physical separation added another layer of meaning. The character of Baun, with his entrepreneurial spirit and childlike resilience, resonated with younger viewers navigating uncertainty. His humor balances survival instincts with optimism. Children recognized the playful aspects of his floating restaurant, while adults perceived the undertone of a child adapting to loss. This duality once again demonstrates how the film speaks simultaneously to innocence and maturity. Educators and youth counselors have referenced the film in conversations about conflict resolution. The climactic moment, where each character must choose to trust rather than retaliate, serves as a tangible illustration of cooperative problem-solving. Children often understand the stakes through the fantasy context, while older viewers connect it to real-world challenges. This layered interpretability contributes to the film's sustained emotional presence. Nostalgia also plays a role. While Raya is a contemporary film, adult viewers often place it within the continuum of Disney animated history. They compare their childhood experiences with earlier animated heroines to the new generation represented by Raya. At its core, Raya and the Last Dragon is a character-driven journey that reshapes familiar mythic archetypes into modern emotional frameworks. While the film follows the structural outline of the hero's journey, it complicates that structure through moral ambiguity, relational tension, and a protagonist who must confront not only an external threat but her own internal resistance to trust. Each major character embodies recognizable archetypal qualities, yet each is also layered with contemporary nuance that reflects evolving storytelling traditions in animation. Raya functions as the reluctant guardian archetype, but with a distinct evolution. At the beginning of the film, she is positioned as a chosen protector. Her father, Chief Benja, entrusts her with the dragon gem, symbolically designating her as the future defender of heart. This aligns with the classical call to adventure. However, Raya's development diverges from a simple heroic ascension. When the gem shatters and Kumandra falls into chaos, she internalizes the failure. 6 years later, she is hardened, guarded, and isolated. Instead of embracing communal leadership, she becomes a lone warrior. This shift complicates the archetype. She is not a pure-hearted hero embarking on a quest with naive optimism. She is a wounded guardian operating from mistrust. This emotional barrier becomes her primary internal conflict. Her skill with the blade, her agility, and her strategic thinking demonstrate external competence, yet her inability to trust others inhibits her growth. The film reframes heroism not as physical bravery alone but as emotional vulnerability. Raya's character arc hinges on her gradual willingness to relinquish control. By the climax, when she chooses to trust Namaari and allows herself to be turned to stone, she completes the transformation from isolated protector to collaborative leader. This moment subverts traditional heroic dominance. Victory comes not through defeating an enemy but through surrendering fear. Sisu represents the spiritual guide archetype, yet she too is reimagined. Voiced by Awkwafina, Sisu embodies optimism and gentle wisdom, but she is not the infallible mentor figure often found in fantasy narratives. Unlike the omniscient sage archetype, Sisu openly admits her insecurities. She describes herself as the least powerful of her dragon siblings. Her power, she explains, was not strength but trust. This reframing positions her as a mentor whose authority comes from emotional philosophy rather than physical superiority. She guides Raya not through dominance but through encouragement. Sisu's arc also involves growth. Initially, she believes wholeheartedly in the goodness of people. Her faith remains steady even when confronted with repeated betrayal. However, when she is accidentally killed during a confrontation with Namaari, the narrative underscores the fragility of idealism. Her temporary loss forces the human characters to embody the trust she preached. In this way, Sisu's role transcends mentorship and becomes symbolic. She is the embodiment of unity, and her absence creates a vacuum that demands collective responsibility. Namaari operates within the rival archetype, but she is not a straightforward antagonist. Introduced as a charismatic yet conflicted princess of Wong, she mirrors Raya's potential for leadership. Their childhood encounter establishes a bond built on curiosity and shared fascination with dragons. The subsequent betrayal fractures this connection, positioning Namaari as the catalyst for Kumandra's downfall. Yet the film consistently resists framing her as purely villainous. Her motivations are shaped by maternal pressure and tribal loyalty. She acts not out of cruelty but out of fear and ambition. Namaari's internal conflict parallels Raya's. Both are daughters shaped by inherited expectations. Both struggle with trust. Where Raya becomes guarded through betrayal, Namaari becomes defensive through obligation. Her eventual participation in the final act of trust completes her own arc. She must confront guilt and relinquish pride. This dual character development reframes the central conflict as relational rather than adversarial. The rival archetype transforms into a mirror, reflecting what the protagonist could become without growth. Chief Benja embodies the benevolent ruler archetype. His vision of a unified kumandra establishes the moral foundation of the narrative. He is idealistic yet pragmatic, believing in diplomacy while preparing for defense. His transformation into stone early in the film elevates him into a symbolic presence rather than an active character. His teachings echo throughout Raya's journey, serving as a moral compass. Unlike many parental figures in animated stories who exist solely to be lost, Benja's philosophy remains central. His belief in unity becomes the ideological inheritance that Raya must interpret for herself. Supporting characters further expand the archetypal landscape. Bound functions as the resourceful survivor. As a young entrepreneur navigating the ruins of Tale, he embodies resilience. His floating restaurant symbolizes adaptability. Though comic in tone, his backstory of loss adds emotional texture. He demonstrates that survival can coexist with optimism. His archetype merges comic relief with youthful ingenuity, reinforcing the film's theme that leadership and strength are not confined to age. Tong represents the gentle giant archetype. Physically imposing yet emotionally tender, he subverts expectations of brute force. His grief over his lost family adds depth to his stoic exterior. Through him, the film explores masculinity shaped by vulnerability rather than aggression. His quiet presence and protective instincts balance the group dynamic, illustrating that strength can manifest through care. Noi and the Anjus contribute to the trickster archetype. Their mischievous behavior introduces levity while highlighting survival instincts in a fractured world. Despite their criminal tactics, their inclusion in Raya's group underscores the idea that trust must extend beyond first impressions. They evolve from opportunistic thieves into loyal allies, reinforcing the narrative's emphasis on chosen community. Collectively, these characters form an ensemble that redefines the traditional hero's journey. Rather than a solitary figure conquering darkness, the narrative positions growth as communal. Each character embodies a fragment of what Kumandra needs: courage, optimism, strategy, resilience, compassion. The final act, where each willingly sacrifices themselves by handing over gem fragments, symbolizes the integration of these archetypal traits into a unified whole. The Droon themselves function as an abstract antagonist archetype. They lack personality or dialogue, existing as manifestations of discord. This abstraction shifts narrative focus away from defeating a villain and toward resolving internal divisions. By making the true conflict ideological rather than personal, the film emphasizes that the greatest obstacles arise from fear and mistrust. In reshaping these archetypes, Raya and the Last Dragon aligns with modern animated storytelling that prioritizes emotional realism. Characters are allowed to be flawed, hesitant, and contradictory. Heroism becomes collaborative rather than individualistic. Rivalry becomes an opportunity for reflection rather than destruction. Mentorship becomes vulnerability rather than authority. Raya and the Last Dragon constructs its world not only through dialogue and plot, but through intricate costume design, physical characterization, and environmental detail. Every fabric fold, architectural silhouette, and color choice contributes to a carefully layered vision of Kumandra. The film's world building is immersive because it feels lived in. The environments suggest history, trade, conflict, and adaptation. The characters' clothing and physical traits communicate social roles, cultural identity, and personal transformation long before they speak. Kumandra itself is divided into 5 lands: heart, fong, tail, spine, and talon. Each region has its own visual language. Heart, located at the center and shaped like a literal heart around the dragon gem, embodies balance and harmony. Its architecture features warm wood tones, flowing water systems, and open courtyards. Curved rooftops and natural textures reinforce the land's connection to unity and tradition. Costumes in Heart tend to incorporate layered fabrics, earth tones, and practical warrior elements, reflecting a society that values both diplomacy and defense. Wong, by contrast, is sleek and angular. Its waterways and symmetrical layouts evoke calculated precision. The color palette leans toward cool grays and blues, reinforcing emotional restraint. Wong's costumes are structured and refined. Namaari's armor and tailored attire reflect discipline and ambition. Sharp lines and fitted silhouettes contrast with the softer, more layered textures of Heart. This visual opposition reinforces the ideological tension between openness and guardedness. Tail represents arid resilience. Its desert landscape is filled with sandy hues, tattered banners, and worn stone. Clothing here appears lightweight and practical, designed for survival in harsh conditions. Bound's outfit blends entrepreneurial flair with desert functionality. The textures in Tail feel weathered, suggesting a community shaped by scarcity and trade rather than luxury. The floating market boats add kinetic energy to the setting, emphasizing adaptability. Spine is defined by icy blues and rigid mountain structures. Towering peaks and frosted surfaces create an atmosphere of isolation. Characters from Spine wear heavy furs and layered garments suited for cold climates. Tong's design exemplifies this environment. His broad frame is wrapped in thick fabrics and protective materials. The visual weight of his clothing underscores both physical strength and emotional burden. Talon, a bustling port city, introduces vibrant color and movement. Its narrow alleys, hanging lanterns, and stacked buildings evoke dense urban life. Costumes here are eclectic, reflecting commerce and cultural blending. Noi's small stature is contrasted by exaggerated accessories and confident posture, visually amplifying her presence within crowded streets. The Onjus, with their monkey-like agility, add kinetic humor that complements Talon's chaotic charm. Raya's own costume evolves subtly throughout the narrative. Her wide-brimmed hat immediately becomes an iconic silhouette. It shields her face, symbolizing guardedness. The hat also references Southeast Asian agricultural and martial traditions, grounding her design in cultural inspiration. Her layered tunic, sash, and boots balance mobility with protection. The color scheme blends muted earth tones with hints of red, reflecting both practicality and latent passion. As her emotional arc progresses, the visual consistency of her outfit reinforces that her transformation is internal rather than aesthetic. She does not need a costume change to signify growth. Her strength lies in character evolution. Sisu's design contrasts sharply with traditional Western dragon depictions. Instead of a bulky, fire-breathing creature, she is elongated and fluid. Her pastel blues and purples evoke water and sky. The softness of her mane and expressive facial features make her approachable. Her design blends elements of Southeast Asian dragon iconography with contemporary animation sensibility. The result is a creature that feels both mythic and modern. Her luminescent scales subtly glow in darker scenes, visually reinforcing her role as a beacon of hope. Namaari's character design communicates duality. As a child, she appears open and curious. As an adult, her posture becomes more rigid. Her undercut hairstyle and fitted armor project confidence and authority. Yet her facial expressions often betray hesitation. Animators use subtle eye movements and micro-expressions to reveal internal conflict. This attention to detail enhances narrative depth, allowing viewers to sense her emotional struggle without overt exposition. World-building extends beyond clothing into environmental storytelling. Abandoned villages overtaken by Droon reflect the cost of division. Cracked statues and overgrown pathways imply years of neglect. The dragon gem chamber in Heart is designed with circular symmetry, symbolizing unity. When fractured, the visual imbalance of its shards mirrors societal breakdown. Lighting shifts across regions further reinforce mood. Warm golden hues dominate Heart, while cooler, harsher lighting characterizes Wong and Spine. Texture plays a crucial role in immersion. Animators incorporated tactile detail into fabrics, wood grain, stone carvings, and water reflections. These surfaces respond dynamically to light and movement. When characters interact with their environment, dust disperses, water ripples, and cloth folds realistically. Such detail enhances believability, inviting viewers to inhabit Kumandra as a tangible space rather than a stylized backdrop. The dragon gem itself functions as both prop and symbol. Its crystalline structure refracts light in prismatic patterns. The fragments carried by different tribes vary slightly in shape, visually reinforcing fragmentation. When reunited, the gem's glow becomes cohesive and radiant. This visual transformation mirrors thematic restoration. Cultural inspiration underpins the entire aesthetic. Architectural motifs draw from various Southeast Asian traditions, blending rather than replicating specific cultures. This synthesis creates a fictional world that honors real-world influences without confining itself to one nation. Textiles incorporate patterns reminiscent of batik and woven fabrics. Weapon designs reflect martial arts traditions while maintaining fantasy embellishment. Movement also contributes to character identity. Raya's fighting style is agile and precise, incorporating staff and blade techniques inspired by martial disciplines. Her stance communicates readiness and independence. Namari's movements are more direct and forceful, reflecting training within Fong's structured environment. Sisu's floating motion defies gravity, emphasizing her otherworldliness. Even minor details reinforce hierarchy and social structure. Jewelry, hairstyling, and armor embellishments indicate status within tribes. Market stalls in Talon overflow with goods, suggesting economic diversity. Snow accumulation patterns in Spine imply harsh living conditions. Every visual choice contributes to layered storytelling. In totality, costume, character design, and world-building in Raya and The Last Dragon operate as narrative tools. They communicate ideology, emotional state, and cultural identity without relying solely on dialogue. The screenplay of Raya and The Last Dragon balances mythic storytelling with contemporary conversational rhythms. Its dialogue operates on multiple levels, functioning as exposition, emotional revelation, and tonal modulation. While the narrative draws from epic fantasy traditions, the language remains grounded and accessible, allowing younger audiences to follow the story while giving adults subtext to engage with. This careful calibration of voice is one of the screenplay's defining strengths. At its structural core, the film follows a quest narrative. However, the way information is revealed avoids heavy-handed exposition. Rather than opening with an extended mythological monologue, the film introduces Kumandra's history through a combination of visual storytelling and brief, character-driven narration. Raya's early voiceover frames the legend of the dragons and the Drune in a tone that feels personal rather than academic. She speaks not as a detached historian but as someone shaped by the consequences of that legend. This approach humanizes the mythology. Dialogue frequently reflects character psychology. Raya's speech patterns shift over time. As a child, she speaks with curiosity and openness. Her exchanges with Namari during their first meeting are playful and slightly awkward, reflecting youthful excitement. After the betrayal, her language becomes clipped and guarded. She often speaks in directives rather than questions, signaling her mistrust. Short sentences and skeptical remarks replace earlier warmth. This evolution is subtle but consistent, reinforcing her emotional arc. Sisu's dialogue introduces much of the film's humor. Voiced by Awkwafina, the character's comedic timing relies on a blend of modern phrasing and mythic context. She makes self-aware jokes about being a dragon in a human world, commenting on the awkwardness of pretending to be human. This juxtaposition of ancient legend and contemporary humor creates a tonal bridge for audiences. Children laugh at her physical antics and expressive exaggeration, while older viewers appreciate the metatextual wit embedded in her lines. The screenplay uses humor strategically to offset darker emotional beats. For example, moments following tense confrontations often transition into lighter exchanges among the group. Bound's entrepreneurial commentary, Noi's mischievous silence, and Tong's understated reactions provide rhythmic relief. These comedic beats prevent the narrative from becoming emotionally overwhelming. They also serve to humanize the ensemble, reminding viewers that humor can persist even in fractured circumstances. Recurring phrases reinforce thematic cohesion. Chief Benja's belief that people are capable of unity echoes throughout the script. His early statements about trust become narrative anchors. Raya repeats and challenges these ideas over the course of the film, turning them into a dialogue not just between characters but between perspectives. The repetition is never mechanical. Instead, it evolves with context. What begins as idealistic philosophy becomes a question of survival. Exposition is frequently embedded within action rather than delivered through static conversation. When the dragon gem shatters, the chaos visually communicates stakes more effectively than extended explanation. Later, when each tribe's fragment is introduced, the screenplay integrates necessary background information into character interactions. For instance, when Raya negotiates or confronts leaders of different lands, dialogue reveals political tensions organically. This integration keeps pacing dynamic. The rivalry between Raya and Namaari is conveyed as much through what is unsaid as through spoken words. Their confrontations often include pauses and restrained expressions. The screenplay allows silence to function as dialogue. A lingering look or a brief hesitation communicates internal conflict. When Namaari finally expresses guilt and uncertainty near the climax, her lines are sparse but weighted. The minimalism enhances authenticity. Comedic timing also operates visually, supported by dialogue. Sisu's attempts to blend in as human involve exaggerated gestures and overconfident improvisations. The humor arises from contrast between her mythic identity and awkward execution. Lines delivered in rapid succession create rhythm, particularly in ensemble scenes where characters respond to one another with overlapping reactions. This layered timing mirrors the chaos of their journey while maintaining clarity. The script avoids overly archaic language despite its fantasy setting. Instead of adopting formal or antiquated diction, characters speak in contemporary tones. This choice makes the moral dilemmas feel immediate rather than distant. Children recognize conversational patterns similar to their own, while adults detect philosophical undertones beneath accessible phrasing. The balance ensures that the film does not alienate viewers through linguistic distance. Another notable element is how the screenplay handles emotional confession. Rather than relying on lengthy monologues, it favors concise admissions. When Raya confronts her own mistrust, her realizations are expressed through action first, words second. The climactic moment in which she chooses to trust Namaari is not preceded by elaborate rhetoric. The simplicity of her statement underscores sincerity. The restraint in dialogue during high-stakes scenes heightens emotional impact. Humor also emerges from character contrast. Tong's stoic demeanor juxtaposed with Bao's energetic commentary creates subtle comedic tension. Noi's silence, punctuated by decisive actions, functions as situational humor. The Anja's antics add physical comedy that requires little verbal explanation. These variations ensure that humor does not rely solely on witty lines but on interplay between personalities. Screenplay structure follows a clear three-act progression. The first act establishes Kumandra's myth and the inciting betrayal. The second act unfolds as episodic encounters across different lands, each adding a new ally and fragment of the gem. This structure resembles a collection quest common in adventure narratives, but the screenplay avoids repetitiveness by allowing each encounter to test Raya's trust in a different way. The third act converges these lessons into a single moral choice. The final resolution underscores the screenplay's central philosophy. Dialogue becomes minimal as each character silently hands over their gem fragment. The absence of extended speeches reinforces that trust is demonstrated rather than proclaimed. When Sisu returns and the lands are restored, the celebratory dialogue is gentle and reflective rather than triumphant. This tonal choice aligns with the film's emphasis on reconciliation over conquest. Overall, the dialogue in Raya and The Last Dragon functions as both narrative engine and emotional mirror. Humor coexists with sincerity, exposition is woven into movement, and character voice evolves alongside internal growth. The screenplay demonstrates that animated storytelling can sustain mythic scale while maintaining conversational intimacy. Through carefully modulated language and timing, it crafts a story that feels both epic and personal, inviting audiences of all ages to engage with its themes through words as well as images. The marketing campaign for Raya and the Last Dragon unfolded during a uniquely challenging moment in global cinema history. Released in 2021, the film arrived at a time when theatrical attendance was uncertain and streaming platforms were becoming primary distribution channels. This unusual context shaped not only how the film was promoted, but how it was positioned within the broader Disney brand. The marketing strategy needed to capture excitement for a large-scale fantasy adventure while also adapting to hybrid release models. Trailers played a central role in establishing tone. The first teaser emphasized mystery and action rather than overt humor. It introduced Kumandra's fractured world, the legend of the dragons, and Raya's solitary journey. Visually striking sequences of martial arts combat and expansive landscapes were foreground to communicate epic scale. The teaser's restrained dialogue created intrigue, signaling that this would be a more action-driven Disney animated feature. Subsequent trailers leaned further into humor by highlighting Sisu's personality, balancing the dramatic atmosphere with accessible charm. The presence of Kelly Marie Tran as the voice of Raya became a key component of promotional interviews and press appearances. Tran discussed the importance of representation and the collaborative cultural research behind the film. Her visibility in marketing materials reinforced the studio's emphasis on authenticity and inclusivity. Similarly, Awkwafina brought comedic energy to interviews, drawing attention from audiences familiar with her previous work. Their combined star power helped broaden demographic appeal beyond children. One of the most significant marketing elements was the film's simultaneous release in theaters and on the streaming platform Disney Plus through a premium access model. This hybrid strategy was widely discussed in media outlets and shaped public conversation around the film. Families hesitant to visit theaters could watch at home, while others sought the cinematic experience. This distribution model expanded accessibility, contributing to the film's global reach despite logistical constraints. Merchandise campaigns were launched in tandem with the film's release. Toy lines featured articulated action figures of Raya and Namaari, plush versions of Sisu, and dragon gem replicas designed to glow. These items were strategically designed to emphasize play patterns centered on adventure and imagination. Raya's sword and hat became recognizable accessories for costume sets, encouraging role-play. The dragon gem in particular functioned as a symbolic centerpiece in product design, appearing in jewelry, backpacks, and collectible keepsakes. Apparel collaborations targeted multiple age groups. Children's clothing incorporated vibrant dragon imagery and tribal-inspired motifs. Adult collections included more subtle designs featuring kumandra iconography, appealing to older fans who preferred understated references. This dual-layered branding approach acknowledged that Disney animated films often resonate with both children and nostalgic adults. Social media played a pivotal role in building anticipation. Short character introduction clips circulated widely on platforms such as Instagram and Twitter. Behind-the-scenes interviews with directors and animators provided insight into cultural consultation processes, further reinforcing authenticity. Promotional hashtags encouraged fans to share artwork and reactions, generating organic engagement. Fan-created content amplified visibility, with early viewers posting cosplay previews and artistic reinterpretations. Music promotion also contributed to branding momentum. The original promotional song performed by Jhené Aiko was released ahead of the film's debut. The track's themes of reflection and resilience aligned with the film's narrative tone. Music videos intercut performance footage with animated scenes, expanding the film's presence into music streaming platforms. This cross-industry collaboration broadened audience exposure. Global marketing campaigns adapted materials to regional contexts. Posters were translated into multiple languages while maintaining consistent visual identity. Localized interviews and promotional events were organized in Southeast Asian markets, where cultural inspiration for the film was particularly resonant. This global outreach emphasized the film's international relevance rather than positioning it solely as an American production. Fast food partnerships and retail tie-ins further expanded reach. Limited edition meal toys featured miniature versions of key characters. Point-of-sale displays in stores highlighted dragon imagery and vibrant color palettes, reinforcing brand recognition. These everyday encounters with merchandise ensured that awareness extended beyond traditional movie-going spaces. Digital engagement initiatives included interactive filters and augmented reality experiences that allowed users to visualize themselves with dragon-inspired effects. These playful tools tapped into trends of shareable content, especially among younger audiences. By merging fantasy aesthetics with personal expression, marketing efforts encouraged deeper emotional connection. Branding also extended into educational and cultural conversations. Featurettes and promotional interviews emphasized the collaborative research undertaken with Southeast Asian consultants. This messaging positioned the film as not only entertainment but as a respectful tribute to diverse cultural traditions. The emphasis on representation became a central talking point in press coverage, shaping public perception. Theme park cross-promotion further integrated the film into Disney's broader ecosystem. While no major attraction debuted immediately, character appearances in parks created visual continuity between screen and physical spaces. Themed merchandise kiosks and parade inclusions reinforced brand visibility long after the initial release window. Critically, the marketing balanced epic adventure with emotional intimacy. Promotional materials showcased high-energy fight choreography and sweeping vistas, yet they also highlighted moments of friendship and vulnerability. This duality ensured appeal across demographic groups. Action-oriented viewers were drawn by spectacle, while families were reassured by heartfelt messaging. The pandemic-era context ultimately shaped reception. Because many families experienced the film at home through streaming, social media discussions became communal viewing spaces. Watch parties and synchronized viewing events fostered collective excitement despite physical distance. Marketing teams leveraged this by encouraging shared online experiences. In retrospect, the branding strategy for Raya and the Last Dragon reflects Disney's adaptability. It combined traditional theatrical promotion with digital-first engagement, merchandise expansion, and representation-focused messaging. By positioning the film as both epic fantasy and culturally grounded story, the campaign extended its global reach. The result was a marketing approach that not only introduced audiences to Kumandra, but integrated its imagery and themes into broader cultural conversation. Raya and the Last Dragon occupies a distinctive place within the evolution of animated cinema, particularly within the legacy of Walt Disney Animation Studios. When viewed alongside earlier classics such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty, the transformation in narrative philosophy becomes clear. Those earlier films centered on romantic destiny, clear moral binaries, and musical fantasy structures rooted in European fairy tale traditions. Raya, by contrast, emerges from a more globally conscious framework, emphasizing cultural hybridity, moral ambiguity, and action-driven storytelling over romantic fulfillment. The shift from passive heroines to proactive leaders has been gradual across decades. The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast began introducing female protagonists with curiosity and agency, yet their narratives still revolved around romantic arcs. Later films such as Mulan and Moana expanded the concept of heroism beyond romance, foregrounding personal courage and cultural identity. Raya builds on this trajectory but pushes it further by removing romantic resolution entirely. Her journey centers on reconciliation and communal healing rather than partnership. Tonally, Raya aligns more closely with ensemble adventure films than traditional princess musicals. Unlike Frozen, which integrated numerous musical numbers into its narrative structure, Raya relies more heavily on score-driven emotion and action sequences. This reflects a broader industry shift toward genre blending, combining fantasy, martial arts choreography, and emotional drama. The absence of frequent musical set pieces positions the film closer to epic quest narratives than fairy tale musicals. Animation style also reflects technological and aesthetic evolution. Earlier hand-drawn classics emphasized painterly backdrops and theatrical staging. Contemporary CGI films, including Tangled and Encanto, experiment with dynamic lighting and textured realism. Raya continues this trend with intricate environmental detail and fluid character movement. The depiction of water, fabric, and light in Kumandra demonstrates advancements in rendering technology, enabling greater immersion. In comparison to non-Disney animated epics such as How to Train Your Dragon, Raya shares thematic interest in human-creature relationships and reconciliation between divided groups. However, its mythological inspiration and cultural synthesis differentiate it from Western medieval fantasy aesthetics. While both films center on dragons as symbols of misunderstood power, Raya's dragons are spiritual embodiments of trust rather than creatures to be tamed. Within Disney's own catalog, Raya can be viewed as part of a trilogy of culturally inspired adventures that includes Moana and Encanto. Each film draws from specific regional inspirations while constructing fictionalized settings. However, Raya distinguishes itself through its emphasis on fractured unity. Where Moana celebrates rediscovery of heritage and Encanto explores generational expectations within a magical family, Raya centers on societal division and the courage required to bridge it. This thematic focus reflects contemporary global anxieties about mistrust and fragmentation. The treatment of antagonism further illustrates evolution. Classic Disney villains such as Maleficent or Ursula embodied theatrical menace with clear motivations. In Raya, the primary destructive force, the Droon, lacks personality. This abstraction shifts narrative emphasis away from defeating a singular villain toward addressing collective fear. Namaari functions as a rival rather than a villain, reflecting modern storytelling's preference for moral complexity over binary opposition. Representation marks another significant point of comparison. Earlier animated eras were predominantly centered on European narratives. Films like Mulan began broadening geographic scope, yet Raya's collaborative cultural consultation process represents a more deliberate commitment to authenticity. This approach signals an industry-wide recognition that global audiences expect inclusive storytelling. Structurally, Raya adheres to the hero's journey while subtly revising its emphasis. Traditional arcs culminate in the hero's triumph through individual prowess. Raya's climax, however, hinges on collective surrender and mutual trust. This reframing reflects a philosophical departure from conquest narratives toward cooperative resolution. In doing so, the film mirrors broader cultural shifts toward valuing collaboration over dominance. When compared to animated films outside the Disney canon, such as Spirited Away, Raya shares interest in spiritual symbolism and environmental world-building. However, its pacing is more action-oriented, aligning with Western blockbuster rhythms. This hybridization underscores globalization's influence on animation, where stylistic boundaries increasingly blur. Raya also reflects industrial transformation in distribution models. Unlike many earlier classics that relied solely on theatrical exhibition, its release through Disney Plus positioned it within a streaming-era paradigm. This context situates the film within a new chapter of animated cinema, where accessibility and global simultaneity redefine audience engagement. In terms of character philosophy, Raya's emphasis on emotional vulnerability as strength marks a departure from earlier archetypes of physical dominance. While characters like Ariel or Belle sought freedom within constrained environments, Raya navigates a fractured world requiring restoration rather than escape. Her leadership model emphasizes humility and shared responsibility, aligning with contemporary expectations of heroism. Musically, the film diverges from Broadway-inspired traditions that shaped the Renaissance era. Its score underscores mood rather than functioning as narrative driver. This choice aligns it with action fantasy cinema while maintaining emotional resonance. The balance between spectacle and introspection situates Raya within a transitional phase of animated storytelling. Ultimately, Raya and the Last Dragon reflects the maturation of animated cinema as a medium capable of addressing complex themes within accessible frameworks. It synthesizes mythic structure with modern sensibility, global inspiration with technological innovation, and personal growth with communal healing. When placed alongside earlier classics and contemporary peers, it stands as evidence of animation's expanding narrative range. Through its cultural inclusivity, moral nuance, and visual ambition, Raya signals a future in which animated films continue to evolve beyond fairy tale formulas. It honors the legacy of Disney's past while charting new territory, embodying the ongoing transformation of animated storytelling in the 21st century.